Aunt Ruth, I'm trying to talk to people about the important things happening right now, and I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere.
What seems to be happening in these conversations?
They're saying things like they're just keeping their head down, or they don't know enough about politics, or they're not an activist, or they don't know what to do. And then there's those that argue with me and have bonkers claims, and I end up getting frustrated. The conversation doesn't go well.
I think my characters in my novel might be able to help.
Scrapped Hope, the novel you're writing that borrows inspirations from things that happened 92 years ago in Europe.
Precisely. That my characters are experiencing the same kinds of things you are, so I'm using my background in some interpersonal communication to help them be effective. Now, my main character, Mita, she can be combative, but she's put in situations where, well, there's consequences. So she has to learn some tact. And one way she does this is by thinking of these conversations not as battles to be won, but opportunities to plant seeds.
So she's not trying to convince the people in the conversation of her point of view?
Exactly. If anything, Mita tries to demonstrate to the other person that she understands their point of view, making them feel valid, even when they ain't. Then she'll plant seeds.
What does that mean?
Seeds take a while to grow. They can be seeds of hope. They can be seeds of doubt. They can be seeds that someone else, sometime in the future, might water.
Cool concept, but I have no idea what that looks like.
First, Mita will try to find common ground. I agree government spending is out of control.
If the person Mita's talking to feels heard and respected, they're not having a fight response, so they're open.
More likely to be. Mita tries to get the other person to give her some kind of verbal confirmation that they feel Mita understands them.
Oh.
Next, Mita might relate it to something in her own life, like, I'm disabled, and if it weren't for the Education Bureau and the 504, I wouldn't have been able to get into the school building, and, well, I'd probably be on the streets now. She'd let it hang and see what the other person says.
That'd be a hard one for someone to then rationalize cutting those programs.
It puts a face to it. But then if Mita can relate it to how it affects the other person's life, that can be real powerful. Like, your kids get reading therapy for dyslexia. What would you do if that went away?
Oh, I like that it's phrased as a question.
Questions can be incredibly powerful, done right. Asking questions can put the burden on the other person to reason out the flaws and find the solutions. The more open-ended the question, the better. So Mita tries not to ask questions that lead the other person to her desired conclusion.
So not, do you really think funding for disabled services is really the cause of government overspending?
Exactly. That comes across as leading, condescending. Instead, Mita could ask, where do you think we should be cutting in terms of government spending?
They may say the Education Bureau.
They may. And how might you handle that?
I'd want to tell them how asinine that is.
Mita would too. But instead, what if she responds truthfully? You know, I don't know everything the Bureau does. Here. Now, I don't have cell phones in my story, but to illustrate. Provides funding for accessible education, enforces federal laws that prohibit discrimination, handles student financial aid, enforces school safety and health requirements. Hell, I'd like to see them spend more on making sure school lunches were nutritious. Offers accreditation of higher education institutions. I don't know. What of these do you think should be cut?
I like how personable this all feels. Like she's working together with the other person to find solutions rather than treating the other person like they're the problem. But then again, they may still say something like they want it handled by the state.
No, in my state government, they'll raise taxes to pay for it and still botch the whole thing. I may have to move states. Now, see, we've come to a point in the conversation where it might feel like the tension is starting to rise too high. Mita's not very good at this, but she's learning to keep diffusing that tension instead of trying to win.
But she's planted a seed.
Maybe even a few. She chooses here to graciously close the topic, change the subject, or like in this case, she takes that tension out with a joke. She can then end it out with something like, "Hey, thanks for trusting me to talk about these issues. I really appreciate the way you heard me out and respected my concerns. That's so rare."
What if they didn't?
They may have been disrespectful at certain intervals, but as long as there were moments where they showed respect, complimented, they'll be more likely to show more next time. And frankly, if they didn't show any respect at all, that's when you're supposed to pull out the, "Yo daddy's so fascist, he bought an electric car company because he was afraid of transmissions."